So in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout South Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So just before we get into the webinar, this first couple of slides just take you through Teams in case you're unfamiliar. Hopefully everyone is, but if you're not, this might be helpful. So this is if you're using the desktop app. I'm going to show you the web app in a couple of slides. So if yours looks a bit different to this, it might be because you're using the web version. So the icons are all up the top on the right. The first icon is where you can see who's participating. So if you click on that one, you can see everyone that's in the meeting. The next one across is your conversation or chat for the meeting. So if you click on that, you can see I've put a couple of files in there already. So you're welcome to download those and ask any questions throughout this webinar as well. The next one along is reactions. No, looks like I haven't enabled reactions, so I'm just going to do that now. There we go. So if you haven't enabled reactions in your meeting, it just lets you raise the hand. But if you have enabled reactions, like I just did then you've got a bit more options. So if you can click there and just give me a thumbs up if you're able to see reactions now. Perfect. If you are using the web version of Teams, the only thing you can do is put your hand up. Okay. Oops, I just got someone. Perfect. Okay, the next one you might not be able to see. This is for breakout rooms. So if you're running a class meeting, this one's really handy for you, but only the organizer can see that. And then the 3 dots gives you lots more options. Just with the chat, after the meeting has finished, you'll still be able to access the chat. It should come up in either your chat in Teams or it might come up in your feed as well up the top. 2 more things to think about. Next to those 3 dots, there's your camera and your mic that you can turn on and off. And then next to that one, that little up arrow is to share contents. So at the moment, I'm sharing my presentation and later on I'll click that one again to share my screen. The next one's really important to know about if you're running things like class meetings through Teams, and that's this little drop-down arrow next to leave. If you, I can click on it because I was the organizer, but you'll just see a leave button. But when I click on it, because I'm the organizer, I have the option to leave or end meeting. And if I click leave, that means the meeting remains open, so you guys could all chat still. But if I click end meeting, that kicks everyone out. So that's a handy thing to remember if you're running class meetings. Okay, if you are using the web version, you don't have all the reactions, so you've only got the hands up. The rest of the icons are more or less the same. But yeah, the app version isn't quite as powerful. Okay. So just a tip. One of the bits of feedback from yesterday is it is good to have 2 screens. I know that's not possible for everyone. So if you don't have 2 screens, a handy tip is if you are using a Windows computer, you can press the Windows key and either your left or right button, and that will split your screen in 2. So that's something to remember if you're trying to follow a webinar and also do the steps at the same time. Okay, and I think I will leave my presentation there and share my screen and we get started. Right. So hopefully everyone now can see my screen. Can you give me a thumbs up with the reactions if you're seeing my screen? Perfect, thanks Alish. Excellent. Just one more thing with the reactions. If you put up the hand, you actually have to click it to put it down again. So that's just something to note. The other thing is, if you've got questions throughout this, feel free to come off mute and let me know as well, because yeah, I'm quite happy to answer questions if I can on the fly. Okay, so the first bit of this presentation is a really quick run through the Microsoft 365 apps. Really quickly, not as in depth as I did yesterday. You can get to all the apps through office.com. If you're not logged in with your LearnLink account, you'll see a different page. Unfortunately, because I'm in the office today, it won't let me show you that page. But if you come to a page that says sign in or log in, just use your @school's email address and your normal password to get in. If your screen looks a bit different to mine, you can go down to that bit down the bottom and press that, and then it should look the same as mine. So Office has got a whole lot of online and desktop apps. I'm just going to chuck in the chat the links to a whole lot of playlists that our team has created to do with using Office 365 apps. So after this, if you want to explore some more in-depth tutorials, there's some links there in the chat. So we've got a class notebook, which you can use through class teams. We've got OneDrive, which is your online storage, cloud storage, a bit like your USB, but it's all stored in the cloud. OneNote, I'll just show you a quick example of that. So this is like an online notebook, which could be used for things like taking staff minute meetings, or you can use it for your teaching. So this is a class notebook example. We've got PowerPoint, we've got something called Sway. So Sway is an online presentation tool, and I'll just show you a quick example. So this is an example of a school newsletter made by Sway, and that app's only available online. And then we've got forms up here. So forms you can combine with class teams as well, and I'll just quickly show you two examples. So if you've ever used SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, this is Microsoft's version. So you could do it for sharing something outside of your school with parents, for example, or in the classroom. Okay, and the last app I'll briefly mention is Whiteboard, because that also can be combined in a class team. So that's Microsoft's version of a whiteboard. So here I've set it up. It's moved a bit. I set this up on the desktop version, and it looks like the online version has moved things, but I've just set it up with my class names, and then I can share that with my class. So that was a really quick overview of some of the apps available in class teams. Now, before we go any further, I'm just going to put out a quick poll to see how people are in terms of, first of all, how they are with class teams, whether they've used it before or not. So when it loads, if you could just click and indicate whether you've used class Teams before. So this is Teams, but with your students. Okay, so a bit of a mix, some yes, some no, about half and half. Okay, and then this second question is around how you might be planning to use class Teams with your students this year. So this one you can click more than one option. Okay, so not too many people for a learning management system. It looks like it's more for sharing files with students and for meetings. Cool, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to get out of my browser and go into my Teams. Hopefully. There we go. Okay, so this is an example of a class team. You might have used Teams before, but not a class team. So there's a few things that are a bit different. First of all, under the team name, we've got a whole section here that you only find in a class notebook. So we've got, a class team. We've got class notebook. We've got assignments. So if you are using it as an LMS, you can put in assignments here. If you do use it for assignments, you should see some grades. Insights, this team won't show me much in Insights because it's a test team. It's not being used with a real class of students. But if this was being used with a real class of students in Insights, you get lots of data around which students are accessing things and how often they're looking. So that's a way for you to check in and check that everyone's active, and if they're not, you can then contact them and see what's up. Then underneath those ones, you've got your channels. So these you might be familiar with if you've used a team before. So we've got a general channel. So general channels, you can't do anything about them. They're just generated automatically. And this might be where you post class notices or things like that. Then down the side, in this example, I've got my subjects, but you could choose however you wanted to organise your team. In this example as well, I've got a couple of channels here that have got padlocks next to them. Now, the reason they've got padlocks is that they're called private channels. So I've set these up to do some group work. And my year 3 students can't see what's in my year 4 channel, and my year 4 student can't see my year 3 channel. So private channels are a good way as well to differentiate your learning. Now, another good thing about private channels in a class team is that if the student isn't a member of that channel, they won't see it appear. So if you've got a student on a one plan, you can create a private channel for them, invite the SSO that's working with them, for example. The SSO, you as the teacher and that student will see that channel, but none of the rest of the class will even see that it exists. So that's something quite handy. Okay, so I'm now going to see, hopefully, if you guys can follow along, and we create a new team as a test team together, and we play around with some of the settings. So I'm going back to all teams, And if you could open up Teams on your own computer, then hopefully we can follow along. Okay, I've got someone in the chat. Okay. Okay, so if you could give me a thumbs up if you've got Teams open. If you need to split your screen, remember if you hold down the Windows key and either the left or right arrow, that will allow you to split your screen. Okay, I can see a few thumbs up. Sorry, Belinda. As I said, I'm recording this, so if you're not able to follow along, that's fine. I will hopefully get the recording out on Thursday, so you can try and do some of the things on Thursday. Okay, let's see what's going on there. Sorry about that. Okay. Right. So to create a new team, I'm going to go in Teams, make sure I've got the Teams icon down the side, and I'm going to click on Join or Create Team. And then I'm going to create a new team. Now, because I'm using this with my students, the one I want to click on is that first option, which is a class. So you can click on this. Now, when you're naming your class, think of a name that is going to make sense for your students, but also think of a name that might be easy for somebody else to find if, for example, you delete the team by mistake. So if you delete a team, for example, you've got 30 days to put in a request to the ICT Services Help Desk, and then they should be able to restore it for you. However, you can imagine there's lots of Miss Smith grade 5 teams out there. So we suggest maybe you use your school number, so those 4 numbers for your site number, and then something that is meaningful for your students. But today I'm just going to call it test and the date for this test one. Now, you can put in students and teachers here, but you don't have to. You can do that later. So I'm just going to press skip. And then my class has made itself up. You'll see down the side we've got those tabs already there for us, and we've got a general channel. Okay, we're going to go in and have a look at the settings, because there's some things that are really important to help us manage a class team with our students. So if we go to those 3 dots there and we click on Manage Team, I might get you, first of all, to add one person as a student. So if you're following this tutorial with a colleague, you could add that colleague. If you're not, you're most welcome to add me as a student. Just don't be offended if I delete your team or delete myself from your team after. Can I have a volunteer for joining my team as a student? If you can just put your hand up and I'll add someone as a student. Any volunteers? Okay, thanks, Peter. Where have you gone, Peter? Sorry, I'll try someone else. Kerry, I'll try you. Kerry Grace, here we go. Hopefully that's the right one. Springbank Secondary. Okay. So hopefully that gave everyone time to add a colleague. Even if the colleague doesn't know, you can just add them in and explain later. And they will appear in your members and guests. So here's Kerry in here in my team. And this bit is a little bit different from a other team or a PLC. You've got this magic button called Mute Students. What this one does is that it means that the students can't reply to messages. So if in your general channel you've got students, doing emojis or funny messages, in those three dots, manage team, members, if you mute that student there, then they won't be able to mess around with the team. You can mute all the students or you can just mute individual students. So there are a couple of options. While we're in here, we're also going to go to settings. So if you've hopped out, it's those three dots, manage team, and then we want to go to that setting column. In here, we're going to look at member permissions. So again, we want to have a look at these and just make sure that they're set to what we want in the class. I wouldn't touch any of these ones here. We'll leave them as is. But you might want to get rid of this option that allows members. So when it says members, it means students. So give students the option to edit their messages. You could take that one away and give students, the option to delete their messages. You could take that one away. That means if a student's posted something inappropriate, you haven't seen it, but other people have complained about it, they've deleted it, you can't, they can pretend that they didn't post it, for example. So they're two good ones to keep in mind. If your class is fine, then sure, leave them, but it's just something to keep in mind. While we're in settings, the other one I want to point out is team code. So particularly if you're a secondary teacher and you might have a whole lot of classes, it's really time consuming to go through and add all your students. So if you've already set up your students' emails as a DL or a group list, what you can do in this one is click on team code and generate. And this is going to generate a code. Now, if someone enters that code into Teams, they automatically get membership to that team. So the other thing I would suggest is once you've given the students that code, they've joined the team, then I'd do the reset button. That way they can't send it to other people and then you've got all these people joining your team who you don't know. If I was doing this face-to-face, for example, in a classroom, I might also click on that full screen. And my first lesson, I might just ask my students to join the team that way. But because we're doing online learning, it might just be easier to copy that code and then put it in an email out to your students. Okay, I think that's about all in settings. I'm just going to show you how to create those private channels as well now. So if we go to those three dots there, we can go to add channel. And if you're adding a channel along with me, just give it any old name. Remember, this is a test team that we're just playing around in. Now, when you set up a channel, you need to decide when you set it up if you want it to be private or public. You can't make a channel public and then swap it to private after, and you can't make a private channel public after you've created it. So just keep that in mind. So if we want everyone in the team to see it, we leave it as standard. But if we wanted to create that private channel for differentiated learning or group work, or even if you wanted a channel in your team for communication between teachers or SSOs, then you'd set that as private. So I might just make this one private so we can see what it looks like. And then when I press create, I can add people because this is a private one. I think I've only got Kerry in here. So I'll add Kerry. I can do that later as well if I wanted to. And then I've got my new channel with that padlock, and Kerry will be able to see that. I can see it, but no one in the class will be able to see it. Just one thing with those private channels, if you do have more than one owner in your team and they create a private channel but don't include you, you won't be able to see that channel as well. So that's just something to note. On that, and I'll just go back to those 3 dots so we can see my team. The other thing that's good practice, if you can, is if you do have more than one owner, that way if something happens to you, someone else can come into the team and change the settings or post or has that role as an owner in the team. So if you don't co-teach, maybe you could ask a member of leadership or a colleague if they can just be an owner in your team as well. Now, sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat. There's a couple of people with their hands up. Cindy, did you have any questions? If you do, you're welcome to come off mute. And Kerry, you've got your hand up. Was that just because you wanted to join the team? Okay, so if you've got your hand up and you don't have a question, if you just click on your raised hand again, that will put it down. Cindy, do you have a question, Cindy? Okay, cool, all good. Okay, so if you are following along with that training summary, we've just gone through the first bit up to activity 1. I'm now going to talk about doing some posts and tagging it and tagging members of your team. So back in my general channel, this is similar if you followed yesterday to what I showed people yesterday. But we're going to do new conversation, and there's different ways you can post. So you can just do a general post, which is
how did you get new
plain text? How did I get? Sorry, was someone asking a question? No, we're all good. Okay, so I'm back in a channel, in my general channel. Down the bottom, I've got a text box, and I'm just going to do a plain post. Does anyone remember, if you joined yesterday, how you get a new line without sending? If anyone wants to come off mute or type it in the chat. Shift enter, excellent. So if you want more than 2 lines before you post, you can type and hold down shift enter and you get a new line. Excellent. Now, if you want something that stands out a bit, you can go to New Conversation and you can click on that A with a pen, and that gives you lots more formatting. So here I can put in a subject. I can change the color of my font as well. And the other thing I can do is I can post to multiple channels. So if I'm a specialist teacher, I might want to post the same message to all my Year 5 classes. If I'm a secondary teacher and I've got multiple classes, I might want to send the same message to everyone as well. So here in post in multiple channels, I can click there. And this one's in the general. I can click select channels, and there I've got access to all the teams that I'm a member or owner of. And then I can go in and choose another team and another channel to post to. So that's quite handy. The other one in here is everyone can reply. So if you want your students to be able to reply, that's fine. But if you don't, you want to just have a post without any replies, make sure you tick you and moderators can reply. Okay, so I'm going to post that one. And then the last way you can get students' attention is that little A with the pen again. And instead of new conversation, we're going to go announcement. I've still got the possibility to post in multiple channels, but I can now change the color if I want, or I could add an image or an illustration, and I can also upload my own images. So if I go back to my test team, you'll see this one here. That was some artwork that my students did, and I just went in and let's edit it to see. I just went in and uploaded that image in there. Might not load for me today. I might just cancel that. But that's a nice way to show off your student work. Okay, let's go back into that test team. Okay, so if you're doing an announcement, you do have to type something in before it will let you post. And if you want to make sure that everyone gets it, you can also do an @ and team. And then that will send an alert to all of the people in the team to let them know that there's been a message posted. Okay. The other thing in here is, let's do a new one again. You'll notice down the bottom, I've got a whole lot of different things. I've also added forms. So if I click on that one, I can do a poll within my team. And you can keep the responses anonymous. And then students in that team can submit their vote. If you don't see that forms icon on your screen, you might need to go to those 3 little dots and put in forms to find it to add. The other app that's handy is React. Oops. It should be in there. Let's try one more time. Reflect. Sorry about that. So reflect. And this is a quick check-in with students to see how they're feeling. So you can order the questions, but these are the responses. And that one, you can see who posted what, but the students can't see who posted what. So that one's quite handy as well. Okay, how are we going? Any questions at the moment? Okay, feel free to come off mute if you do. Right, I'm now going to go into the files. So again, I'm in my general channel still, and you might like to follow along as well. Because this is a class team, it will have already created some file structure, hopefully. There we go. So it's got this folder called class materials. Now, this folder is really special because students cannot edit any files that you share in class materials. So if I drop and drag a file in here, my students can go in and change that. I did hear someone that the teacher had put in an assignment. They said it was 500 words. Their kid went in to look in there and someone had changed it to 50 words. You can go back and see who's edited it, but if you're saving files in this section, just be aware students can go in and change them. So if you want a file to be read only, you need to put it into your class materials. So I put it in the wrong spot. Oops, don't want to open it. Oops. Instead, I'm going to move it. Oh, maybe I can't. And I'm going to move it into my class materials. And now that file, I can edit it, but my students can't. The other thing to think about in here is there's this sync. So for example, my computer here, you see here, I've got lots of folders here. Each of these is an actual team that I belong to. So here in my test class materials, I've got my files there. So if you are using lots of a team lots, you could do this sync and then it's going to appear there. I'll just do sync. Let's try again. It's not liking it today. Let's go back to general and try syncing here. So here you can see my test Jan 25 has appeared in here, and now I can drop and drag files in there. So that's a handy thing to think about as well. Each channel also has files. So if you created a private channel there, you can drop files into that private channel, and then again, the student or the members of that channel are the only people that can access that file. Okay. The other thing about files is in a team is you can collaborate with them. So I'll go back to that general. I don't want to use a file in my class materials because that's edit only for students. But if I drop in a file into just the general channel, and I want students to be able to edit this at the same time, again, an easy way to tell students where that file is if I create a link in a post. So I can go to those three dots and I can click on copy link. Now I need to press the copy. Sometimes I forget and then I wonder why the link hasn't appeared. I can go back into my general, start a new conversation. And then when I post that, students can easily find that file. That way as well, in my files, either in class materials or just general, I can do new and create a whole lot of folders. And I don't have to worry about telling students which folder the file is in. If I do those three dots and copy link, copy, and then post as an announcement or as a new conversation, then students will easily be able to access those files. Even if you move where that file is saved afterwards, that link is still connected as well. Okay. Now I know only about, well, a very small percentage of people were thinking of using Teams for LLMS. I'm going to quickly show you assignments anyway, just so that it's something that you can think about. Yeah. So under the assignments, if you don't have anything at the moment, actually I might just hop out of this team and go into one where I've got some assignments created. So in this team here, I've got some assignments. Can't remember what this one was. So I can look at it. I can see no one's handed this one in. I'm going to go to those three dots and edit assignment to have a look at what it looks like. Okay, so when you set an assignment for students, you can give it a title and you can also attach some things. So this assignment here was actually a Nearpod assignment. So actually I'm going to cancel out of that one and go back and go into a different one. Actually, start again, I'll start from scratch. So let's go to create, and you're welcome to do this at the same time as me. You can create one from an existing one if you've already started one in a previous year or in a different class, but we're going to click on start one from scratch. I need to put in a title. It won't let me save it unless there's a title in there. Now I don't have to put in instructions, but I might here attach an assignment sheet, for example. And then if I click attach, it gives me some options here. Reading progress is like to check reading fluency. I know that the department's moving away from running records, but I think reading progress still has a purpose. OneDrive, you could attach a file that you've got saved in your OneDrive. Class notebook, you can attach a page from a class notebook. So if you're trying to do this with the team you've just created, you might not have got a class notebook there. So I'll leave that for the moment. You can link to a resource as well, or you can find a resource that you've already saved on Teams. I'm instead though going to click on new, and I'm just going to create get a Word document and call it assignment sheet. Now, at the moment that says students can't edit. If I go to those three dots, I can click on students, edit their own copy. Now, what that allows me to do is give them a document, and then I can easily go in and see their work from within Teams. I don't have to get them to email me the document. They don't have to give me the link to the document. I can go straight into assignments and find that document just by clicking on their name. If I want, I can give the assignment points. I can add a rubric. So again, if I've got a rubric I've already created, I can use that, or I can create one from scratch. I can choose the due date. This one here is an interesting thing to know about. So assign to all students added to this class in the future. If you've got a class or a group of students that's quite transient, you might want to go in and edit this, because otherwise if you get new students joining, the old assignment will show up and they won't get marks for it. So if you click don't assign to students added to this class in the future, that assignment won't show up for those new students. So that's something to think about. If your class is fairly stable, then you can probably keep it as assign all students added to the class. If I go into the due date, I can edit this here, and I can actually schedule it. So if I'm really organized, I can put all my assignments in for my students for the year, and then I can choose when it's going to appear in assignments. I can also put a close date so that I don't accept late submissions. Okay, so once I've sorted that all out, I just click assign. And then that assignment is there. I'm actually going to go into one that I've done before now, just to show you what it looks like when you're marking students' work. So I go into returned, hopefully. Let's try again. Go into grades instead. Okay, so here I've got another one. Here I've got this maths problem solving. And go back. This here is a student who's returned their work. And this is for seahorses, so this is no good. Sorry about this. Let's try again. Maths problem solving. And let's go into this one. Okay, right. So straight away, because I attached in this case a notebook page to this assignment, I can see what the students submitted. I can give them feedback. I can even write and highlight things on their work here. Because I've attached a rubric, I can go in and mark their rubric as well. And to move and see the next person in the class, I can just click on the arrow. Oops, she didn't. Me. So I can see this student hasn't done any work. So the beauty of this is even if the student hasn't submitted their work, you can go in and see what progress they've made. So I might leave some feedback for Jess here saying, do you need some help? Send me an email or something like that. Now, one thing to remember though is you don't want to return the students' work if you've left a comment for them, because then that will be marked as marked. So if you want them to continue working on it, it's that little arrow next to it and return for revision. Okay, so that's just a quick view of what you might see if you were marking a student's assignments. Okay. And the time. Now, I haven't got it in the handout, but I was thinking I might just spend the last 5 or so minutes before I point you towards some resources talking about setting up meetings, because I know lots of you were thinking about meetings. So this isn't in the handout, but I'll quickly go through a few things about meetings. So there's 2 types of meetings you can set up. I'll just go to my calendar. There's meetings that are in channels and meetings that are just open to everyone. So I'll show you an example of setting up a meeting in a channel first. So I'm just going to click here. I'm going to give it a title. And then in this spot here, I'm not going to worry about who's attending, but in this spot here, add channel, I'm going to choose where I want this meeting to take place. So there's a test team. Here's my test team there. And that was yesterday's. See if I can find it. I might just have to choose a different one. I'll just put it in my class test in general. And then I can click send. Now, the reason I would set up a meeting in a channel is that if I set up a meeting in a channel, students have the ability to use the chat function. If I set up a meeting outside of the channel, then I can add things to the chat. However, students can't. Sorry, Kerry, I've just seen a question. Do you create the rubric in class teams or in Word notebook? So in class teams, you can do the rubric in there. However, a tip is there's no spell check in the rubric function in class teams. So personally, I do it in Word and then copy and paste into Teams. Okay, sorry. So that meeting's coming up in my channel. I can't access it, so I'm just going to go back into my team. And hopefully it's going to show up in my general channel. There it is. Okay, so I've set it up in my channel. Okay, so we just went in, we set up that meeting in that channel. I'm going to go to those 3 dots there and go to view meeting details. Now this bit's really important because I want to make sure that I set it up so that students are in a safe environment and I know what's going on. So once I've set it up, I can go to this thing called meeting options. And that's going to open up my meeting options in a web browser. So I can work out who's going to bypass the lobby. So if I'm having a class meeting, I might want it to be only me. That means that I have to let each student in as they come in. That means the students can't just jump in there whenever before the meeting. The other one is who can present. So if you've got issues with students trying to share their screen when they're not supposed to, you can click on Only Me for that. And then during the meeting, if you do want your student to share the screen, you've got the ability to make them a presenter just when they need to share their screen. You can also turn off the mic and the camera. So if you've got students that have trouble with bandwidth, for example, you might want to set that to off for the camera, for example. But if internet isn't an issue for your students, then it's probably good to keep it on. And here's where you can allow those reactions. So you can set it up before the meeting starts to allow your students to do those reactions. Again, when you set it up like that, make sure you press save. It won't change anything in there, so you can close that browser down, but those settings have been saved for that meeting there. If you add people in here, you can also set up your breakout rooms. So you could do that. The only downside is you have to add students' individual email accounts, email addresses in there. So if you're not too bothered about setting up breakout rooms before the meeting, then you can just leave it like that. And in your meeting, just refer people to that link. So anyone can click on that link in that channel to get into that meeting. The other way to set up a meeting is through not in a channel, so a chat outside of a channel. So in here, I'm going to call this one test not in channel. I'm not going to add my channel there, and I'm going to click save. Now, if I go into this one and edit this one now, I need to add one person in there to begin with. And send update. Let's try again. And edit. Now, if I go to chat, I can add in a poll if I want to by clicking on the plus. Add forms. And then I can set up a poll for my students before I have my class meeting. But if I do it this way, the trade-off is that students can't use the chat. So you can set up polls and have polls. That you can launch later, but students can't write in the chat. Okay, I know I've run a little bit over, and apologies for that, and apologies for my technical issues. But hopefully before people disappear, I just want to share some links for where you can go for some extra help, and hopefully people have got something out of today as well. Just having to open everything up again after my computer decided to have a fit. So first place, if you haven't already joined this, this is a team that my team run. And this has got over 1,400 teachers in there. I'm just going to bring that up in my teams, and I'm sharing my list on. Let's try again. Here we go. So I know some people have joined this already, but if you've got any questions about anything, you can join the team and ask some questions and someone will respond to you, whether it's someone from our team or another teacher. Okay, so the next link is our email. So if you've got any questions, feel free to send us an email. And we've also got some open office hours on Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday of this week. So I'll just put a link in here to the Eddie page that explains this. So if you've got a specific question about setting up your class or anything to do with Microsoft or Google, feel free to drop in, see us and ask us a question, and we'll be very happy to help you this week and next week. If you want to join our Teams newsletter, I've got a link to that, and we let people know about training that's happening as well. Then there's a couple of there's a place where you can go to get some help or do some training through Microsoft. All my pages are closed, but let's put that one in. So this one was previously the Microsoft Education Center, and it's now moved to Microsoft Learn. And so there's a whole lot of courses there that you can run or you can do yourself. They're all self-paced. And then the last link I'm going to put in is our team's YouTube channel. Let's see if I can go to that one. So in there, we've got a whole lot of videos that are really small snippets on how to do something. Apart from those top ones, most of them are really short, or if you wanted to know more about Sway or Forms, for example, we've got some longer tutorials. There's also one there about rubrics. So if you are using Class Notebook with rubrics, there's a handy one there showing you how to convert a downloaded rubric into a nicely formatted Excel sheet. So check that out. If there's something you need to know and we don't have a click on it as well, get in contact with us and we'll make a video for you. Okay, and the last one is our feedback and training certificate. So I do read all your feedback. It is really helpful. And it will also give you a PD certificate. So if you click on that link there, make sure you're signed in with your LearnLink email address, and then that should give you a certificate. I'm happy to hang around for a little bit longer if anyone has any questions. Thank you for hanging on and being flexible with my technical difficulties at the end there, but hopefully you got something out of it today and feel a little bit more confident in using class Teams.